10 questions before week 5. Texans getting ready to take on the Atlanta Falcons. The vibe is a little bit different. Can they handle it? That and a lot more in the locker room with a special guest.
Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize.
All right, 10 questions before week 5. Little late night locker room. Appreciate you for coming through. It is the number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. By the way, on that show, In the Loop, Jalen Petrie going to join the show tomorrow, another exclusive interview. So hope you ride along. We're going to get right into it. Please subscribe, like, ride along. And be sure to subscribe to my guy, Cody Stutz, who joins me right now. Cody Stutz of Houston football joins. We'll just hop into it, Stutz. 10 questions that I'm going to throw your way. Love to hear what you got to say about it, but I think these are the most relevant questions heading into week 5 against the Atlanta Falcons. Starting with question 1. Can this team handle success? We know they can handle adversity. We know they can scrap. We know that when you're counting them out, they find ways to win, whether it was in Jacksonville or against the Steelers. But things are a little bit different now. CJ Stroud, he's going to be on the McAfee show. You had D'Amico on Pardon My Take. Nico Collins was on Up and Adams. Jimmy Ward was on the Richard Sherman podcast. Like, everybody's talking about the Texans. They're getting all kinds of love. Look, it's going to be a challenge. It's new for D'Amico. It's new for a lot of these guys. But will they be able to handle success?
I feel like they handled success pretty well coming out of Jacksonville. Now, that's not to the same level as taking down a heritage franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers and sending them into a total spiral, but they handled it pretty well from taking care of a Jacksonville team that they were not supposed to beat. And that was a little bit of a tougher matchup than what they did against Pittsburgh. But to your point, this week's been very different. It's been very different from an operations standpoint. They're going to get some new faces back from the injured reserve. And how do those guys jump in right away? Are those guys going to try to come in, maybe try to do too much? Look, this question is answered simply by how you feel about your level of trust in D'Amico Ryans as a tone setter. And I feel really good about D'Amico Ryans' ability to set the tone for this team, focus this team. And CJ Stroud even talked about it today. He was asked, hey, like when D'Amico Ryans talked about, hey, those first couple of weeks, you needed to focus a little bit more. You needed to just execute a little bit better. And you and a lot of players have talked about how you guys set the tone in week 3 and week 4. Was that you guys talking with D'Amico? Was that D'Amico kind of showing up and saying, hey, this is what we need to do? And Stroud was like, yeah, it was, D'Amico sort of set the tone. We followed, we instituted it with the team. And I believe in D'Amico Ryans, and so I don't have any reason why they wouldn't be focused against an Atlanta team that they have a pretty good chance to beat.
Well, I mean, yeah, I believe in D'Amico Ryans, but I mean, if they don't handle it, it's not like it's a verdict. It's not like it's something that's going to be, an entire tenure thing. But it is the first time that they're getting all this cheese. Did CJ seem a little bit tired to you today?
No,
he seemed a little bit more. He seemed to me a little bit more tired than he's been in recent weeks, just a little bit.
Well, I mean, he in Brooks Cabina's story in the Chronicle, it seems like CJ Stroud pours in quite a bit to the life of NFL quarterback, because he talked about how he loved to cook when he was at Ohio State. He used to cook all the time, and now when he gets home, he has his chef cook because he's too tired to cook for himself.
I think he's cooking spaghetti.
I mean, I don't know what he was cooking.
Chicken breasts.
I don't know what CJ Stroud cooked.
Well, that seems like a question you probably could have asked, but
Well, how was I going to ask Dalton Schultz and CJ Stroud to explain what CJ Stroud used to cook when Brooks Cabina was getting an exclusive interview with them?
So the answer to can they handle success? I guess it's kind of to be determined. I think you bring up a good point with the whole Jags thing. So that's question one. Question two: will the offensive line improve significantly? I mean, logically, you would hope so. They haven't allowed a sack the last couple of weeks. You would like to see them be able to run the ball a little bit more. You're bringing back two of the highest paid tackles in the league on their respected sides. One of them might be playing guard. You're trying to put your best five out there. Will we see significant improvement from the offensive line?
No. How much better can they get than last week? I mean,
Well, maybe they can run the ball better.
They ran for 139 yards.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they can open it up to where the tight ends don't have to stay in and you get to
5-man blocking instead of 6 and 7-man blocking.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I mean, I think that would be improvement.
I don't like the line's easy to figure out if Tunsil plays. If Laramie Tunsil doesn't play, the line's a little bit more difficult to figure out what they're going to do. Like if Tunsil's playing, it's Tunsil, Titus, Jared Patterson, Shaq Mason, George Fant, left to right. If Tunsil doesn't play, I don't know who the left tackle is.
I have two thoughts on this. First of all, I think it does improve. I think it opens up. That doesn't mean they're not going to allow a sack. I think it does improve. But I have like two main thoughts on this, and one of them is kind of a question. Thought one, I don't want to move Jared Patterson from center. Like if they want to move Juice Scruggs to guard, okay. But I mean, this isn't like the most articulate way to say it, but I mean, CJ's hands have been under the dude's butt, and he's been putting up historic things, and he's been taking snaps from him, and he's also been pass blocking very well. Mm-hmm. So I know that Juice Scruggs, maybe eventually Juice Scruggs becomes a better player. If they found Jared Patterson in a starting center in the 6th round, maybe it can kind of equalize the Kenyon Green thing and what we think Kenyon Green is. But I don't think they'll do it, but I don't want to see a situation where you're moving Jared Patterson for a guy who's going to be playing his first game when Jared Patterson might not have been selected as early in the draft, but he basically is going to have a third of a season head start of playing really good ball and improving consistently. So that's my first thought there. My second thought is kind of a question. Did watching this offensive line, and I'm not going to sit here and say you don't pay Laramie Tunsil, but did watching this offensive line and the way in which they were able to function, did it kind of at least make you think, man, did they really need to pay Titus Howard too? The money that they paid him. Did that thought at least cross your mind a little bit?
Well, the reason you spend money on guys like Tunsil and Howard is because the majority of 17 games they're going to be able to play at a really good level. I mean, somebody was going to figure out that backup heavy offensive line. It wasn't the Pittsburgh Steelers, but somebody was going to figure it out at some point. But it certainly does make you think about the allocation of resources, and it makes you think about a couple of years down the road if this organization is able to go out there and find guys who are, backups. If this organization is able to go out there and find a guy in the 6th round who comes in and starts right away, a second rounder who's super versatile that, was playing guard in training camp, then played center, then got hurt, then came back and maybe slotted in at left guard. That gives you hope that if these big contracts, they finish up, you can maybe move on from those guys and turn it over to somebody else.
We'll see. Yeah. But the Patterson thing, you agree, don't move him?
I agree 100%. He's going to be going on 5, maybe 6 games, and Scruggs played left guard in training camp some. He was playing a lot of left guard, actually, those early days.
Third string center, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at least early on. Question 3. Can they stop the run? The Atlanta Falcons are 11th in the NFL in rushing, 128 yards per game. Texans are 19th in stopping the run at 116 yards per game. Are they going to be able to stop the run? It's been, I don't want to say it's not as much of a struggle as we're used to, but it is something that's going to be very significant this week, especially with the quarterback situation. Are the Texans going to be able to stop the run? I actually think Tavier Thomas helps in the run defense. And I also think Denzel Perryman can, although we'll get to the linebacker situation a little bit later. But do you think they're going to be able to stop the run?
I do. In the first half last week, they allowed 3.8 yards per carry, which you can get by with that. In the second half, they allowed 4.9 yards per carry, so 1 yard better. That wasn't great, but you saw when they were making tackles, when they were making plays, guys weren't living on an island having to make a play all by themselves. It was multiple guys diving in there, making plays. I mean, there were plays where, I think about the Henry To'o play where he sort of darted through the offensive line and fell off of Najee Harris. Well, Harris eventually got tackled by like 4 different Texans in like a pile up in that situation. We weren't seeing that in the first couple of weeks. We're seeing that more in the past couple of weeks. And I believe that they've sort of fixed a few of the issues that they had from just guys paying attention, guys being in the spot they need to be in, and making sure a bunch of guys are around whoever has the ball. Plus, 1 tackle for a loss in the 2 weeks previous to this game. They had 4 in the first half last week. They got plenty of juice there to slow down the run.
Yeah, this is going to be their biggest test. The other thing is, I don't know if they might be able to put Atlanta in situations to where Atlanta can't just run the rock. I think that's something else to kind of keep an eye on. Question 4. Will Titus Howard play guard? He lined up at guard. You were at practice today. He did a really good job at guard last year. Actually went toe-to-toe with Chris Jones when they played the Chiefs. Are we going to get Titus Howard at guard? If so, is it going to be something where it's just temporary, or obviously long-term they like him as a tackle, but are we going to see Titus Howard playing guard?
I would think that Titus Howard's playing guard until the Texans feel really good about Juice Scruggs taking over that guard spot. The scary part about Howard playing guard is if Tunsil's back at left tackle and Titus Howard plays guard and it looks really good, why would you go away from it? Like, why would you stop doing it? Even if Juice Scruggs gets healthy, like why would you go away from that? And George Fant's not been bad at right tackle. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you George Fant's amazing at right tackle, but he's not been bad. He's a really solid player there. And it would stand to reason that if you feel better about George Fant at right tackle and Titus Howard at left guard as a combination, you feel better about that than Titus Howard at right tackle and Juice Scruggs or Josh Jones at left guard, then you don't change it and you play Titus Howard there as long as you feel like you need to play Titus Howard there.
Question 5. What is the linebacker rotation going to look like? I don't want to call Denzel Perryman addition by subtraction, but I will say he played really bad against the Colts. I will also say that there are limitations in how he covers guys. And I think To'o has some of those too that haven't quite been exposed. I know Bijan Robinson's a really good receiver. They hardly ever use Kyle Pitts. So I don't even know, I don't know what the hell's going on there, but I do wonder what the linebacker rotation looks like when it's at full strength. They seem to love To'o to where he's like calling the defense and stuff, and he's coming off his best game, as is Christian Harris. What is this rotation going to look like?
You put the 2 linebackers, because you primarily have 2 linebackers on the field. You put the 2 linebackers that make the least mistakes on the field.
Javier's like another linebacker too. That's the other thing.
Sure. You're going to put the 2 guys on that make the least amount of mistakes. So that's Henry To'o and Denzel Perryman. You can play them together because that's what you've done at different times. That's what they did a couple of times before Denzel Perryman got hurt. You play them together, and you just hope that To'o can showcase a lot more of the good that he showcased last week. Like, he had a nice game, but let's not act like he didn't have some moments that looked a lot like the first 3 weeks in that 4th week. But from your point, from the coverage standpoint, I mean, Henry To'o going toe-to-toe with George Pickens in the red zone and knocking that ball away, like, I didn't know he had that in him. I mean, I knew that
on that a little higher though.
Well, yeah, the pass sucked, but still, I mean, how many linebackers in the NFL, even in the red zone, is George Pickens, leaving their jockstrap on the turf and not even close to him,
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Question number 6. Is there a clear number 1 receiver, or are we going to get this rotation continuing? And by rotation, I mean back and forth. It was Nico Collins, then it was Tank Dell, then it was Nico Collins. Is one of these guys, is Nico Collins going to establish himself as the number 1, or is it just going to be kind of a week-to-week thing where 1 week it's Nico, 1 week it's Tank? I do know CJ said that they like to run a lot of man-to-man in Atlanta. So there could be some opportunity there, not just with the receivers, with how CJ's been able to use his legs. If they're going to be running a ton of man, I look for CJ to be able to move the chains and keep his head up a little bit, because that means the guys are going to be running away. So I would keep an eye on that. But do you think Nico Collins, is it safe to say he's the number one? He's obviously having an elite season, but Tank Dell against Jacksonville and in other situations, he's been the guy. So do you think there's a clear number one, or do you think we're playing a little bit of ping pong?
I would think that the ping pong continues, but with maybe a tiny bit more towards Nico Collins. Nico Collins is beating man coverage, and then Tank Dell's specialty is taking care of man coverage. And so I would think that both would have some success. Oh, by the way, Robert Woods goes out there and just runs really crisp routes and is available to catch the football. So it wouldn't surprise me if Robert Woods got a couple of more looks than he has the past couple of weeks for this Texans team. But Bobby Slowick's designed an offense, it feels like, each week to really take advantage. I would say this feels a little bit more like a Tank Dell week, because last week that Steelers team had been giving up a lot to wide receiver twos, like primarily guys who had been the second wide receiver for teams. And Nico goes off, not to say that he's the number two guy, but I just wonder if some of the way that the reads work and how quick Tank can get open and some of the man coverage that he may see from Atlanta, that maybe Tank Dell's the easy option. And look, you don't want to make if you can make a great play every time, make the great play, but throw it to who's open, move the chains, and keep going. Yeah,
I agree. I think the target share is going to be split. I think we're playing a little bit of ping pong here. Question number 8. Does the healthy O-line open things up for the running backs and tight ends? Do we see maybe a 100-yard game for Dameon Pierce? Do we see maybe more production from Dalton Schultz, more consistent production from the tight ends? Do you think the fact that you're getting a healthy O-line back, does that open stuff up for the tight ends?
Yes, especially if the tight ends just flat out go out there and run a route. I mean, you think about what Dalton Schultz did in that route up the middle that CJ Stroud hit him on. I mean, he just found a linebacker. That linebacker was in no man's land. Schultz hit him with a nice, easy move. He's wide open. CJ Stroud hits him. Boom, big gain. I mean, think about what happens if Schultz finds that linebacker again, because he's not having to chip a defensive end. That's where, like, if Patterson plays a nice game, Shaq Mason plays a nice game, which some of the stat nerds really like what Shaq Mason's doing. On Twitter, seeing a lot of offensive line gurus talking about how good Shaq Mason's been playing. And then whatever they do at left guard, let's just assume it's Titus Howard. Like the Falcons' strength on their defensive line is up the middle, so the tight ends don't help you a ton on that. The running backs, yeah, they help you a little bit, but they primarily have been there to help with edge guys. Like, the edge is not where the Falcons are super dangerous. It's up the middle. So that's, hey, get the tight ends out there in space. And I mean, maybe we see a little bit more Brevin Jordan than what we've seen. And I'm still waiting. We've seen him a couple times. I'm still waiting for King Quintiriano to make a big play.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get a touchdown last week. I was wrong. Right about Brevin Jordan the week before. Wrong there. Question 8. Does Cam give the D a lift? We talk about, maybe the offense making the defense better, the defense making the offense better. Cam Johnston, he's back. He's punting. He's a good punter. We've watched a bad punter the last 4 weeks. We talk about, the defense and how it's kind of middle of the road. It's not. Does having an elite punter, and it can be as much of a difference as 15 yards, a big difference. Does he kind of help out the defense and kind of give them a little bit of an indirect boost?
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem with what you said. We haven't watched a bad punter the past couple of weeks. We've watched one of the worst punters in football the past couple of weeks. I mean, he's the second worst punter in all of football. And if Cam Johnston plays to his average, which is about, middle 10th, 12th in the league the past couple of years, like you're talking about damn near 50, 60 yards worth of hidden yards in a game. And this Zentner kid couldn't get it inside the 20 to save his life. Cam Johnston's the second best punter in football, but about downing it inside the 20. So you put some real stress on an Atlanta Falcons team that doesn't want to throw the football, if all of a sudden they're looking at 2nd and 11 from their own 17-yard line, like that's an opportunity to Desmond Ridder just making a mistake and somebody going back the other way for 6 points.
100%. Question 9. Will we see Mechie's role expand? He's a willing blocker. We heard that about Noah Brown. Now Mechie, he's kind of got the highlight reel, hidden block type of thing. We saw him make a big catch, get up, shake the hair a little bit, point. Seemed like he's a little bit fired up. He's kind of tired of talking about cancer. He just wants to produce. He just wants to be a winner on a winning football team. Are we going to see an expanded role for Mechie?
Yes. You see him out there. He got 2 targets last week. CJ Stroud said that he owes Mechie one. He didn't like the throw that he made.
Said he owed Schultz one too.
Yeah, I felt like the throw he made to Mechie was catchable. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was catchable. So I mean, if Mechie had caught both those, he'd have like around 40 or so yards. Here's what I would say. I think we see the crane kick in the end zone this week. I think he scores.
You think Mechie scores a touchdown?
I believe Mechie's gonna score a touchdown.
You can put some bread on that. I bet that's odds. I bet that's like 20-1.
Yeah, I might put a little sprinkle on that. Yeah, enough to pay for a large stuffed crust pizza or something.
I think Quintariano scores this week. I'm going back to the well.
I tell you what, Mechie's yards after catch, that catch and run, the route was crisp. He was moving. He wasn't afraid of contact. I liked that, man.
You think Noah Brown is going to have a role on this team when he comes back?
I mean,
he was like the go-to guy week 1. I don't know what the hell is going on there.
Hope not.
Final question. Is there an identity of this team? I don't know, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. I think their identity thus far has been resilient, and I don't think resiliency has an identity. I think resiliency is just about making do with what you got. A lot of teams who have identities, like a run team, as soon as like certain guys get hurt, you're kind of screwed. But I don't know what the identity is, and quite frankly, I don't think it's possible for them to develop an identity. And when we talked about identity, we're talking about offensively. I guess we could find out in the next few weeks when they're more healthy, but I don't know that they really have an identity. And quite frankly, I think sometimes does this team have an identity can be kind of misleading or irrelevant, over romanticized.
I would have a tough time saying that anything that they've done on offense is something that they for sure will do week to week until they have that offensive line close to what they want to play with and that they're comfortable with. Because, I mean, week 1, and, Bobby Slowick talked to you guys on In the Loop about this, like, hey, week 1 was kind of a wake-up call. You realized he couldn't really do some of the things he was trying. They did some old school, traditional, like 7-step drop stuff in week 1. And he didn't have the time to make those throws, and maybe CJ Stroud hadn't quite got to the point where you trust him to make some of those plays. But now with Stroud, the quick developing, and if he has a bunch of time, throw in some of that old school stuff. Take those big old drop backs, those big old step backs. Let those wide receivers go out there, try to make a big play. Maybe they add a few more of those things in. But yeah, I'm with you. There's no identity to this team as much as just they feel pretty tough. Which some of these teams of the past couple of years just rolled over when adversity hit. This team's pretty tough.
I mean, it can just be as simple as the quarterback is your identity, and that's fine, whatever he does. And that's a lot of times that's not necessarily a bad thing. CJ Stroud, a little podium with CJ Stroud coming up. I'll probably drop that few hours, probably 7:00 or something like that. Check that out. Jalen Petrie coming on the show. Appreciate you for joining me, Stoots. Very much so. A little late night stuff. You know how that goes. I'll let you get back to writing. Tell the people where they can find your work. By the way, much better than The Athletic, I will say. There every day. One of the best on the beat. So tell the people where they can find it. Tell the people where they can watch it.
Yeah, just check it out at Houston Football, www.houfootball.com. That's where you can find it. Always have free content on there. Have a breakdown right now for everybody. Free content of will the Texans get flexed into a prime time spot this season?
Look at you.
Went through that. Nobody else in this market's done that, but I have.
Oh, look at you.
I have. And then, of course, right here on YouTube, you can find my work as well.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
Anytime.
All right. Cody Stutes here in the locker room. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Those are the 10 questions. Did I miss anything? Did I say anything dumb? Chances are I did. Oh, yeah. By the way, I'm all about finding bargains. It's kind of something that I do on the show. You see me rocking this hoodie. It's actually a Nike hoodie. If you go to the Texans shop, and I don't work for the Texans or anything like that, I just like to look out for folks. Just go to the Texans shop. This was for whatever reason, and I don't have any Texans hoodies or anything like that. This was $30. And it's a Nike hoodie. I don't know how much they have left. I've basically told everyone I know, but just looking out for you. I benefit zero from that. Appreciate everyone for coming through. I do benefit from subscriptions, likes, and all that, and listening to the radio show, which begins in about 10 hours. Hop on the Odyssey app, join. Jalen Peach are going to join the show. We're going to keep it going. Number one source for Texans content, radio and digital wise. No matter what happens, though, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in this together. Talk to y'all tomorrow morning.
You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up, we number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what.